The letter was never supposed to surface. A restricted dossier sealed for more than 18 years hidden away in a long-forgotten vault at Quantico. No heading, no rank, no ceremony. Only a single code name pressed in faded ink across its weathered surface. Iron Wolf. For years, nobody knew who the name pointed to, until someone cracked it open. And the moment they did, nothing remained the same. November 14th, 2006, Afghanistan, Helmand Province. 3:47 in the morning. 12 Marines trapped in an abandoned compound, surrounded by more than 60 Taliban fighters armed with heavy weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. 2 Chinook helicopters already shot down attempting rescue. 8 good men dead before they hit the ground. Standard extraction procedures had failed. Command protocols had failed. Hope had failed. In Washington, a room full of generals stared at satellite imagery and wrote condolence letters to 12 families. The mission was declared unsalvageable. The order came down from the Pentagon itself. Stand down, retreat, write them off. But one person refused to accept that answer. One person they hadn't counted on. One person nobody believed in. A 20-year-old corporal, medical corps, too young, too small, too quiet. And in 47 minutes, that corporal did what an entire military command structure said was impossible. Brought all 12 Marines home alive. 0 casualties. The operation was classified immediately. The after-action reports were sealed under national security protocols. The medals were awarded in closed ceremonies that never made the news. And the name Iron Wolf disappeared into legend, until now. Because 18 years later, that legend just walked through the gates of Fort Braxton, and nobody recognized her. The dawn at Fort Braxton carried a biting chill. November again, always November. The sky hung low and gray over the training grounds of North Carolina, heavy clouds promising rain that hadn't yet decided to fall. The kind of morning that made old injuries ache and new recruits question their life choices. This was where future Marine leaders were forged, a place where discipline wasn't requested. It was imposed, where weakness wasn't tolerated. It was eliminated, where every step, every word, every breath was measured against a standard most civilians couldn't begin to comprehend. The obstacle course stretched across the eastern field like a monument to controlled suffering. Rope climbs, wall scaling, tire runs, barbed wire crawls. Each station designed not just to test physical capability, but to break down ego and rebuild it into something useful. At the far edge of the main yard, standing apart from the clusters of eager cadets, was Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell. 38 years old, 5'6", 135 pounds soaking wet, hair pulled back in a regulation bun so tight it could have been painted on, uniform pressed with creases sharp enough to cut paper, boots polished to a mirror shine that reflected the overcast sky, posture absolutely perfect, hands locked behind her back, eyes forward. Everything about her appearance screamed regulation. Everything about her presence whispered something else entirely. But nobody was listening. She'd arrived at 0600 exactly as ordered, processed through intake with 0 conversation beyond yes, sir, no, sir, understood, sir, collected her bunk assignment, her training schedule, her meal card, filed into formation with the other late transfers without making eye contact. The whispers started almost immediately. A medical corps transfer. At command school, she's got to be what 35-40 medics don't belong here. This is for combat leaders. Maybe she knows somebody. Political favor. Probably begged her way in. Evelyn heard every word. Her hearing had been tested at Paris Island 20 years ago and scored in the 98th percentile. She could pick out individual conversations in a crowded mess hall, could hear a safety being clicked off from 30 yards in the dark. She heard everything they said about her, and she said nothing back. Her eyes remained fixed on the obstacle course ahead, but what she was actually seeing had nothing to do with ropes and walls. She was counting, mapping, analyzing. 14 security cameras covering the main yard, 3 primary exits, 2 secondary access points through the equipment storage area. Blind spots at the northwest corner where the fence line met the tree cover. Thermal sensor grid mounted on the east building positioned for night vision goggle compatibility, but vulnerable to anyone who knew the detection patterns. The southwest corridor between buildings was a tactical nightmare. Single point of failure. One smoke grenade and you'd have 0 visibility for evacuation. She noted it all, memorized it all, said nothing about any of it, because Evelyn Blackwell had learned a long time ago that the loudest voice in the room usually had the least worth saying. Movement to her left. A group of cadets approached, 6 of them, all male, all in their mid-20s, all carrying the particular brand of arrogance that came from being told you were special before you'd actually done anything to earn it. Leading them was Lieutenant Garrett Ashford, 26 years old, 6'2", linebacker build, square jaw, perfect teeth, the kind of recruiting poster good looks that made civilians trust you and made experienced NCOs roll their eyes. He walked like command was his birthright rather than something earned through blood and sacrifice. His uniform was immaculate, but worn with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to fight for respect because it had always been freely given. Ashford stopped 3 feet from Evelyn, close enough to establish dominance, far enough to maintain the pretense of professionalism. His eyes swept over her with the kind of assessment that was meant to be noticed, meant to make her uncomfortable, meant to establish the hierarchy before a single word was spoken. Transfer. His voice carried just enough volume to draw attention from nearby cadets. This wasn't a private conversation. It was a performance. Evelyn's eyes didn't move, didn't even flicker in his direction. Sergeant Blackwell, sir. Her voice was level, neutral, the minimum response required by regulation and nothing more. Ashford's smile sharpened. Not quite friendly, not quite cruel, somewhere in between where privilege lived. Not here, you're not. He let the words hang for a moment, making sure the audience was paying attention. Here, you're just another cadet trying to keep pace. Medical background. It wasn't really a question. He'd already read her file, already formed his opinions. This was about establishing what he thought she was in front of everyone else. Evelyn said nothing. The silence stretched. One of Ashford's group, stocky corporal with a Tennessee accent, couldn't help himself. Medics playing soldier. That's new. Scattered laughter from the gathering crowd. Not loud, not quite brave enough for that, but enough to make the point. Another voice from the back, younger, trying too hard. Bet she got in on diversity points. Command school's gotta hit those quotas. More laughter, bolder now. Ashford didn't participate in the jokes, didn't need to. His smile did the work for him. He was the ringleader who never had to throw the first punch because he had people willing to do it for him. Evelyn's posture didn't change, didn't stiffen with offense, didn't relax with defeat, just remained exactly as it had been. Parade rest, eyes forward, breathing steady and controlled. But if anyone had been paying attention to the right details, they would have noticed her left hand, still locked behind her back. But the fingers were moving, barely perceptible, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people in Ashford's immediate group. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 observers in the wider circle. 20 total. Average height 5'10", average weight 180. Ashford himself probably 220, most of it muscle, but some of it ego. Tactical assessment complete in 4 seconds. If this went physical, Ashford would lead with his right. He had a tell, a slight shift of weight onto his back foot before any aggressive movement. The corporal from Tennessee would come from the left flank. The younger one making diversity jokes would hesitate, wouldn't commit unless he saw others moving first. She could drop Ashford in under 3 seconds. Knee to the outside collapse, his stance control the fall. Tennessee would be next, the others would scatter. But that wasn't the play here, because Evelyn Blackwell hadn't come to Fort Braxton to fight cadets. She'd come to disappear. Ashford waited another few seconds for a response that never came. When it became clear she wasn't going to take the bait, his smile faded into something colder. Gonna be a long few months for you, Sergeant. He drew out her rank like it was an insult. Then he turned and walked away, his group following like baby ducks who'd learned their waddle from watching him. The crowd dispersed. The whispers continued. The jokes got a little bolder now that they'd seen she wouldn't fight back. Evelyn remained exactly where she was, eyes forward, hands locked, breathing steady, but her mind was already 3 steps ahead. Ashford was predictable. The crowd was predictable. The whole situation was predictable because she'd seen it a dozen times before in a dozen different contexts. What wasn't predictable was why she'd been sent here in the first place. 3 weeks ago, she'd been stationed at Camp Lejeune. Medical Corps, quiet assignment, no drama, no attention. Exactly what she'd requested after her last deployment. Then the orders came through. Transfer to Fort Braxton. Command School Instructor Track. Report November 15th. No explanation, no context. Just orders. And Evelyn Blackwell had learned a long time ago that when orders didn't make sense, someone else was playing a game you weren't meant to understand yet. So she'd come, and she'd watched, and she'd waited. The morning formation bell rang across the yard. Cadets began moving toward the assembly area in organized chaos. Voices calling out positions, boots striking pavement in rhythmic patterns that weren't quite synchronized yet. Evelyn fell into step at the rear of the formation, not leading, not following too close, just present, occupying space without drawing attention. The assembly was standard, an officer she didn't recognize, a speech about excellence and dedication that she'd heard variations of for 20 years, announcements about training schedules and equipment maintenance and weekend liberty restrictions. She listened with half her attention. The other half was focused on something else. The security camera mounted above the main building entrance. Standard issue, motion-activated recording with 72-hour local storage before upload to central servers. It had flickered, just once. 1.7 seconds of disruption in the indicator light pattern. So brief that nobody else would have noticed. So brief that it could have been nothing. But Evelyn Blackwell had been trained to notice things other people missed, and cameras didn't flicker randomly. Not military-grade equipment maintained to specification. They flickered when someone was accessing them, when data was being pulled, when systems were being compromised. She made a mental note of the timestamp, 07:15 Eastern Standard Time. The assembly ended. Cadets dispersed to their first training rotation. Evelyn moved with the flow toward the equipment distribution center. Drew her training gear from the supply sergeant without conversation. Checked the M4A1 carbine she was issued. Verified the serial number. Conducted a functions check with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. As she worked, she became aware of someone watching. Not Ashford, not his crew, someone else. 20 feet to her left, partially obscured by an equipment rack, was Corporal Sloan Mercer. 24 years old, 5'8", athletic build, sharp eyes that missed very little. One of the few female cadets in the advanced leadership track. Sloan had been watching Evelyn since formation. Not obviously, not in a way that drew attention, but watching nonetheless. Smart kid, Evelyn thought. Observant. That could be useful, or dangerous. The morning training rotation was tactical movement drills, small unit maneuvers across varied terrain. Nothing Evelyn hadn't done 1,000 times before. Ashford's group took point. They moved with adequate coordination, but poor situational awareness. Focused too much on looking good for the instructor. Not enough on actual security. Evelyn hung back, moving through the course with minimal effort and zero flash. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to not be noticed. But as she navigated around a concrete barrier, her eyes caught something. Scuff marks, fresh, leading toward the fence line at the north perimeter. Boot prints, military issue. Size 11 probably. Heavy tread. Someone had been moving through this area recently. Someone who wasn't part of the training rotation. She filed that away too. The drill ended. Scores were posted. Ashford's group placed first with times that were acceptable but not exceptional. Evelyn's group placed fourth. She deliberately slowed her pace to match the median performer. No one remembered fourth place. Lunch formation at 1200 hours. The mess hall was standard military institutional. Long tables, efficient food service, noise levels that made conversation difficult. Evelyn collected her tray, found a seat at the end of a mostly empty table, ate methodically without tasting anything. 2 tables over, Ashford was holding court, retelling the morning's exercise with embellishments that made him sound more tactical than he actually was. His audience laughed at the right moments. Sloan Mercer sat alone 3 tables away. She wasn't eating, she was watching, and what she was watching was Evelyn. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Evelyn broke contact first, looked back down at her tray, continued eating. But in those 2 seconds, something had passed between them. Recognition, not of identity, but of type. Sloan was a hunter, someone who paid attention to details everyone else missed, someone who asked questions other people were afraid to ask. That made her interesting and potentially problematic. The afternoon rotation was weapons maintenance and inspection. 100 cadets in the armory breaking down M4s and M9 sidearms, cleaning every component, reassembling under time conditions. Evelyn worked at a station near the back. Alone, Ashford appeared beside her station without warning. He leaned against the bench with studied casualness. "So what's your story, Sergeant?" His tone was different now, less performance, more genuine curiosity mixed with suspicion. "Medical Corps for what, 15 years? And suddenly you want to be an instructor at command school?" Evelyn didn't look up from the rifle she was field stripping. 18 years, sir, and I go where the Corps sends me. Nobody just gets sent here." She removed the bolt carrier group, inspected it, set it aside. "I did." Ashford watched her work for a moment. She moved with unconscious precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation, muscle memory so ingrained it looked like meditation. "You're fast." It wasn't quite a compliment, more like an observation he didn't know what to do with. Evelyn said nothing, just continued her work. Ashford's jaw tightened slightly. He wasn't used to being ignored. "What's next, Sergeant, going to teach us how to hold a rifle?" He meant it as mockery, a callback to his morning performance, establishing that he was still in control of the narrative. Evelyn paused, her hands stilled on the weapon. Then, without looking at him, she spoke quietly. "Yes, sir." Before Ashford could process the response, Evelyn reached over and picked up his M4A1 from his station, the one he'd been working on when he decided to bother her. He started to protest. She ignored him. In 4.3 seconds, with movements so smooth they looked choreographed, Evelyn completely field-stripped the weapon. Upper receiver, lower receiver, bolt carrier group, charging handle, buffer assembly, trigger group, every component laid out in perfect order on the bench. Then, without looking down, once maintaining eye contact with Ashford the entire time, she reassembled it. 4.3 seconds. The same amount of time it took to disassemble. She performed a functions check. Trigger pull, safety rotation, charging handle operation. Perfect. She set the weapon back on his station. "Magazine release is sticking slightly, sir. You'll want to clean the spring housing before tomorrow's live fire exercise." Her voice remained absolutely neutral. No triumph, no mockery, just a technical observation delivered in the same tone you'd use to comment on the weather. The entire armory had gone quiet. Everyone had stopped working. Everyone was watching. Ashford's face had gone through several color changes. Red, white, red again. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Evelyn returned to her own weapon, continued her maintenance procedures as if nothing had happened. The silence held for another 5 seconds. Then someone in the back started to laugh. Cut it off immediately. But the damage was done. Ashford grabbed his rifle and stalked out of the armory without another word. His crew followed. The noise level gradually returned to normal. Conversations resumed, but they were different now. Quieter, more thoughtful. And every few seconds, someone would glance over at the quiet sergeant in the back, who just humiliated a lieutenant without raising her voice or changing her expression. Sloane Mercer watched from her station 20 feet away. She'd seen the whole thing. Seen the precision, seen the deliberate eye contact, seen the absolute confidence, and she'd seen something else. When Evelyn had reached for Ashford's rifle, there'd been a moment, a fraction of a second, where her sleeve had ridden up slightly. Sloane had caught a glimpse of Evelyn's forearm. Scars, old ones, faded but still visible, the kind you got from crawling under barbed wire, or through broken glass, or across terrain that wanted to shred you alive. Not training scars, combat scars. Sloane filed that away, added it to the growing list of things that didn't quite match the official story. Medical Corps Sergeant, 18 years of service, transferred to command school, but moves like a special operator. Observes like someone expecting ambush. Carries herself like someone who's been in situations where 4 seconds was the difference between living and dying. Who was Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell? The question itched at Sloane's brain for the rest of the afternoon. Evening formation at 1800 hours. Dinner. Free time until 2100, then lights out. Evelyn used the free time to walk the perimeter. She moved slowly, casually. Just another sergeant getting some air before rack time. Hands in pockets. Posture relaxed. But her eyes were working. The fence line was chain link. 12 feet high, razor wire on top, standard security. Easily defeated by anyone with bolt cutters and 10 minutes of privacy. The camera she'd noticed this morning was mounted at the southeast corner, still functioning normally now. Indicator light steady, but the flicker had been real. She continued her walk. Noted the junction box near the equipment storage building. Unmarked. Probably telecommunications. Possibly also security system routing. Access panel secured with a standard military padlock. Grade 3. Could be picked in under 30 seconds by anyone with basic training. Evelyn paused near the box, not looking directly at it, just standing nearby, apparently absorbed in watching the sunset. Her peripheral vision caught the edge of something, fresh scratches on the lock housing. Someone had been here recently, someone who'd tried to access this box and hadn't been particularly careful about leaving evidence. Evelyn resumed walking, completed her circuit, returned to the barracks. The common area was half full. Cadets writing letters, reading, playing cards, the standard evening rituals of military life. Evelyn went straight to her assigned bunk, third rack, second tier, middle of the room. Not isolated enough for privacy, not prominent enough for attention. She sat on her bunk, pulled out a small notebook from her cargo pocket. The kind you could buy at any PX for $2. She opened it to a blank page and began to write, not in English, in a code she'd developed years ago, a personal shorthand that looked like random marks and notations to anyone who didn't have the key. Camera anomaly, OH715, southeast corner, junction box, fresh marks, entry attempt, perimeter fence, scuff marks near north section, thermal grid, southwest corridor vulnerable. She paused, pen hovering over paper, then added one more line. Why am I here? Because that was the real question. The one that tied everything else together. Someone had pulled strings to get her transferred to Fort Braxton. Someone wanted her here specifically, in this place, at this time, and someone else had been probing the security systems, testing defenses, looking for weaknesses. Coincidence. Evelyn Blackwell had stopped believing in coincidences around the same time she'd stopped believing her nightmares would ever completely go away. She closed the notebook, slid it under her pillow, lay back on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. Around her, the evening sounds of the barracks continued. Conversations, laughter, someone's phone playing music too loud. Normal. Everything normal, except it wasn't. At 2300 hours long after lights out, Evelyn was still awake. She lay motionless in the dark, eyes open, breathing steady, listening. Most of the barracks was asleep now, snoring, sleep-talking. The sounds of 40 people unconscious in close quarters. But not everyone was asleep. 2 racks over Sloan Mercer was also awake. Evelyn could tell by the breathing pattern, too controlled, too measured, watching or thinking both probably. Evelyn closed her eyes, not to sleep, to think. Something was happening at Fort Braxton, something beneath the surface, something that had been set in motion before she arrived. And now she was part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. At 23:47, Evelyn's tablet buzzed, just once. A single vibration from the personal device locked in her footlocker. She waited 3 minutes, made sure everyone nearby was still settled. Then she slipped out of her bunk, moved silently across the barracks in her socks, retrieved the tablet from her locker. The screen showed one notification, encrypted message, no sender identification, no subject line, just 4 words glowing in the darkness. Iron Wolf, stand by. Evelyn's hand froze midair. Her pulse remained steady. Training held. But something cold moved through her chest. Not fear, recognition. That code name had been buried 18 years ago. Classified under protocols that required presidential authorization to access. Sealed in vaults that weren't supposed to be opened. Ever. And yet here it was, on her personal tablet, in a message that shouldn't exist. Someone knew who she was. Someone knew where she was. And someone was reactivating protocols that had been specifically designed to stay dead. Evelyn stood in the dark barracks tablet, glowing in her hands, and felt the careful life she'd built over 18 years begin to crack. Because Iron Wolf wasn't just a call sign, it was a promise, and promises made in blood never really went away. They just waited. In the dark. Until someone called them home. The message stayed on the screen for exactly 10 seconds before it disappeared. No trace. No notification history. No proof it had ever existed except for the cold weight settling in Evelyn's chest. She stood motionless in the darkened barracks tablet, dark again in her hands, listening to the breathing patterns of 40 sleeping Marines around her. Iron Wolf, stand by. 4 words that ripped through 18 years of careful anonymity like a bullet through paper. Someone knew, someone remembered, and someone was coming. Evelyn returned the tablet to her footlocker, locked it, moved back to her bunk with the same silent precision she'd used to leave it. She lay down, pulled the thin blanket over herself, closed her eyes. But sleep was a tactical impossibility now. Her mind was already running scenarios, threat assessments, exit strategies, the kind of calculations she'd sworn she was done making. At 04:30, she gave up pretending and rose for morning PT. The briefing hall at Fort Braxton could hold 200 personnel when fully packed. At 0800 the next morning, it held 83 cadets, 12 instructors, and 1 sergeant who nobody wanted sitting next to them. Evelyn took a seat in the back row. Far right corner, while behind her, clear sight lines to both exits, old habits that refused to die no matter how many years passed. The room filled gradually, conversations in clusters, the social hierarchy of military training already establishing itself. The confident ones near the front, the uncertain ones in the middle, the ones who'd rather not be noticed gravitating toward the edges. Ashford entered with his usual entourage, 5 cadets who'd decided their best path forward was riding his coattails. They took seats in the second row. Prime real estate, close enough to the instructors to look engaged, far enough back to whisper commentary. Ashford glanced toward the back, spotted Evelyn. His expression flickered through several emotions before settling on something between contempt and wariness. He leaned toward the cadet next to him, said something. The cadet looked back, laughed. Evelyn's expression didn't change. 3 rows up, Sloane Mercer entered. She scanned the room with the systematic attention of someone conducting a threat assessment rather than looking for a seat. Her eyes landed on Evelyn for exactly 2 seconds. Then she chose a seat in the middle section, alone, where she could observe both the front of the room and the sergeant in the back, without being obvious about it. Smart, Evelyn thought again. That one's going to be trouble. The briefing began at precisely 0800. Major William Cross, the senior training officer, was a squared-away Marine in his mid-40s, with the kind of bearing that came from 3 combat deployments and zero tolerance for mediocrity. He ran through the day's training schedule with clipped efficiency. Tactical communications exercise at 0900, leaf fire drills at 1100, leadership evaluation scenarios after lunch. Standard curriculum. Nothing Evelyn hadn't seen before. But then Major Cross did something unexpected. He looked directly at the back row, directly at Evelyn. We also have a new instructor joining the cadre today. Major Vaughn Keller will be conducting advanced security assessment protocols for senior cadets. Evelyn's breathing remained steady. Her posture didn't shift, but every nerve ending in her body went on alert. Vaughn Keller. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 18 years. The last time she had, it was in a debriefing room at Camp Leatherneck, Afghanistan. 2 days after Operation Damascus Ridge, 4 operators had gone into that compound with her. Only 3 had come out. The 4th had vanished during the chaos of extraction, presumed killed, eventually declared KYA when nobody was recovered. Except Vaughn Keller hadn't died. He'd disappeared, and now he was here. The briefing continued. Major Cross outlined evaluation criteria, performance standards, the usual administrative framework of military training. Evelyn heard none of it. Her mind was running different calculations now. Probability assessments, threat matrices. Keller showing up at Fort Braxton the same week she received transfer orders wasn't coincidence. Keller being assigned to security protocols when someone was probing the base defenses wasn't coincidence. Nothing about this was coincidence. The briefing ended at 0830. Cadets began filing out toward their first training rotation. Conversations rose to fill the space. The normal chaos of transition between scheduled events. Evelyn remained in her seat, watching, waiting, and then he walked in. Major Vaughn Keller looked exactly like she remembered, and nothing like she remembered. 45 years old now, still lean, still moved with the controlled efficiency of someone whose body was a weapon he'd trained to lethal precision. But there was something else now, something harder, something that lived in his eyes and the set of his jaw. He wore his uniform like armor, ribbons and badges that told a story of exemplary service. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Combat Action Ribbon. All of it legitimate, all of it lies. Keller's eyes swept the emptying hall, found Evelyn, held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he walked directly toward her. The last few cadets hurried out, sensing the tension in the air even if they didn't understand it. The room cleared until it was just the 2 of them. Keller stopped 10 feet away. Professional distance, but his body language screamed something else entirely. Sergeant Blackwell? His voice was exactly as she remembered. Smooth, controlled. The kind of voice that could convince you to trust him right up until the moment he put a knife in your back. Major Keller. Evelyn stood, not to show respect, to equalize the tactical situation. Sitting made you vulnerable. Keller's expression remained professionally neutral. I was surprised to see your name on the transfer roster. I imagine you were, sir. The sir carried no deference, just the minimum required by regulation. Keller took 2 steps closer. 8 feet now, stills outside immediate striking range, but close enough for the conversation to feel intimate, threatening. You shouldn't be here, Blackwell. The Corps seems to disagree, sir. The Corps doesn't know what I know. And what's that, sir? Keller's jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in his professional facade. That some things are better left buried. Some names are better left forgotten. He let the words hang between them, heavy with implication. Evelyn said nothing, just held his gaze with the same flat calm she'd maintained for 18 years. Keller leaned in slightly, lowered his voice. Leave Blackwell. Request a transfer. Medical reasons. Family emergency. I don't care. Just leave before someone finds out who you really are. Is that a threat, sir? It's advice from someone who knows how these things work. These things. Classification, compartmentalization, operational security. He straightened, stepped back, restored the professional distance. Some missions stay classified for a reason. Some operators stay anonymous for their own protection. His eyes held hers. Think about it, Sergeant. You've built a quiet life. 18 years of quiet. Don't throw that away now. He turned and walked out without waiting for a response. Evelyn remained standing in the empty hall for another 30 seconds. Then she pulled out her small notebook and wrote a single line. Keller knows, Keller warned. Keller afraid. The morning's tactical communications exercise took place in the field training area. 80 cadets divided into squads of 8. Each squad given a scenario. Each scenario designed to test decision-making under pressure with imperfect information. Evelyn's squad included 3 lieutenants, 2 corporals, 1 staff sergeant, and 1 lance corporal who looked about 19 and terrified. Ashford was not in her squad. He was in the squad running the adjacent course. Close enough to observe, close enough to make comments, which he did, frequently. Careful with Blackwell's squad, he called out during a tactical pause, loud enough for multiple squads to hear. The medic's in charge, so if anyone gets hurt, at least she can patch them up after she gets them killed. Laughter from his squad, nervous silence from hers. Evelyn ignored it, focused on the scenario. They were given coordinates, a notional hostage situation, limited resources, imperfect intelligence, standard training problem. The squad looked to their senior member for guidance, a first lieutenant named Collins, 26, West Point graduate, smart but inexperienced. Collins hesitated, started to lay out a conventional approach. Evelyn said nothing, just listened, observed, and noticed what Collins missed. The scenario had a flaw, a deliberate one. The coordinates given for the hostage location placed them in a depression with high ground on 3 sides. Anyone approaching conventionally would be walking into a kill zone. The exercise was designed to see who would recognize the trap. Collins didn't. He began organizing the squad for a direct approach. Evelyn let him get halfway through the briefing before she spoke. Permission to speak, sir. Collins looked surprised that she'd said anything at all. Go ahead, Sergeant. The coordinates put us in a natural ambush position. High ground at 0900, 1200, and 1500 hours. We approach conventionally, we're exposed from 3 directions. Collins frowned, pulled out his map, studied it. His face changed as he saw what she was describing. You're right. So what's the alternative? Evelyn pointed to a route on the map. Approach from the west. It's longer but uses this ridgeline for cover. Puts us above the coordinates instead of below them. We control the high ground. We control the engagement. The squad looked at her differently now. Not quite respect, but attention. Collins made the call. They took Evelyn's route. The exercise concluded 30 minutes later, with their squad rated the highest performance of the morning session. Ashford's squad had walked directly into the kill zone and been notionally wiped out in the first 3 minutes. When the instructors announced the results, Ashford's face went through the same color progression it had in the armory. He stared at Evelyn across the training field. She didn't look back. The obstacle course run was scheduled for 1400 hours. Full gear, timed, results posted publicly. This was where physical capability mattered more than tactical thinking, where size and strength usually won over technique and experience. Usually. The course was brutal. Rope climb, wall scramble, tire run, barbed wire crawl, water obstacle, finishing with a 2-mile run in full kit. Average completion time was 18 to 22 minutes. Anything under 17 was considered excellent. Ashford finished in 16 minutes, 41 seconds. He stood at the finish line, chest heaving, accepting congratulations from his squad like he just won the Medal of Honor. Evelyn started her run 3 heats later. She moved through the obstacles with mechanical efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation, just smooth, practiced execution of techniques she'd drilled 10,000 times. Rope climb, hand over hand, no leg wrap, faster that way, wall scramble, 3-point contact. Never commit your full weight until you're sure of your grip. Tire run, high knees, stay on your toes, let momentum carry you. Barbed wire crawl, low, controlled. Scan ahead for the smoothest path. Water obstacle. Commit. Don't slow down at the edge or you'll lose time recovering your pace. Final run, 2 miles, full kit. This was where her size became an advantage. Less mass to carry, more efficient stride pattern. She finished in 15 minutes, 53 seconds. The instructor checking times did a double take, checked his stopwatch, made her repeat her bib number, verified it. 15 minutes, 53 seconds. Fastest time of the day. By nearly a full minute, the gathered cadets went silent. Ashford stared at the posted results like they'd personally insulted his mother. And then he did something stupid. He walked up to the chief instructor, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sir, I'd like to request a recount. That time seems unusual." The instructor, a gunnery sergeant with 26 years of service and exactly zero patience for bullshit, looked at Ashford like he was something scraped off a boot. "You questioning my timekeeping, Lieutenant?" "No, sir, just medics aren't usually that fast, sir." "This one is. Results stand." The gunny turned away. Subject closed. But Ashford wasn't done. "It's just that some people might have advantages we don't know about. Enhancement, medical access." The implication was clear. The silence that followed was deadly. The gunny turned back slowly. "Are you accusing Sergeant Blackwell of using performance-enhancing substances, Lieutenant?" Ashford realized he'd stepped too far, but pride wouldn't let him back down. "I'm just saying it should be verified, sir." "It will be. Sergeant Blackwell, you're ordered to report to medical for random screening. Results to be posted by 1700 hours. Evelyn nodded once. "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant." She walked away toward the medical building without another word. Ashford watched her go, satisfaction on his face. He'd just guaranteed she'd be humiliated when the test came back clean, and everyone knew he'd forced it out of spite. Or so he thought. The live fire exercise was scheduled for the following morning. Small unit tactics on the range, live ammunition, moving targets, stress conditions. The kind of training where mistakes could be fatal. Evelyn arrived at the armory at 05:30 to draw her weapon and ammunition. The M4A1 she was issued felt wrong the moment she picked it up. Too light. She conducted an immediate function check. Trigger mechanism was sticking. Not badly, just enough to throw off your timing in a fraction of a second. She flagged the armor, got a replacement weapon, but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Someone had tampered with that rifle. Not badly enough to cause immediate failure, but enough to create problems during a live fire when split-second timing mattered. Evelyn said nothing, just made a mental note and moved on. The exercise began at 0600, 8 squads on the range simultaneously, moving through urban warfare scenarios with pop-up targets and hostile fire simulation. Evelyn's squad was third in rotation. They moved through the course with decent coordination, nothing spectacular, nothing disastrous, until they reached the final objective, a rope bridge crossing over a 15-foot ravine. Standard obstacle, navigated successfully by hundreds of Marines. Evelyn was third across. She reached the halfway point when she felt it. The rope harness around her safety line had been loosened. Not dramatically, just enough that her weight and momentum were causing it to slip. She had maybe 3 seconds before it failed completely. 2 choices: go forward fast and hope to reach the platform before the harness gave way, or go back and abort. Going back meant failure, meant delays, meant drawing attention. Going forward meant risk. Evelyn went forward. She moved fast, hand over hand, boots finding purchase on the rope ladder beneath her. The harness slipped another inch, then another. 5 feet from the platform. The harness failed. Evelyn's safety line dropped away. She was suspended over 15 feet of open air, with nothing but her grip on the rope and her own strength keeping her from falling. The squad on the platform saw it happen, started shouting. Evelyn didn't pause, didn't hesitate, just kept moving. 3 feet, 2 feet. She reached the platform and hauled herself over the edge with arms that had done thousands of pull-ups in preparation for moments exactly like this. She rolled to safety, stood up, looked back at the failed harness hanging loose over the ravine. The squad medic rushed over. "Sergeant, are you okay? You need to sit down. Let me check you for injuries." Evelyn waved him off. "I'm fine. Equipment failure. It happens." But it didn't just happen. Someone had sabotaged her gear. Someone had tried to hurt her, or at least tried to make sure she failed. The question was, who? And the answer became clearer when she saw Ashford standing 30 yards away with his squad. Watching. Not surprised, not concerned, just watching. Their eyes met across the training ground. Ashford looked away first. That night, Evelyn's tablet vibrated again at 2300 hours. She retrieved it from her locker, checked the screen. Another encrypted message. "Iron Wolf. Stand by. Whitfield inbound 0600. Whitfield. Marcus Whitfield. The name hit her like a fist to the chest. Captain Whitfield. The man she'd pulled out of that compound in Helmand Province 18 years ago. The man who'd told her to leave him and save the others. The man whose life she'd saved last because that was what the mission required. Colonel Whitfield now, if he'd stayed in, if he'd survived the years since, if he was coming here, it meant something big. It meant the past wasn't staying buried anymore. Evelyn closed the tablet, sat on her bunk in the darkness. Around her, the barracks settled into sleep. But 2 racks over Sloan Mercer was awake again, watching again. Evelyn could feel the weight of that observation. The kid was smart, too smart. She'd noticed things, made connections, and now she was putting together a picture that didn't match the official story. At 0100 hours, Evelyn gave up on sleep entirely. She dressed quietly, moved through the barracks without waking anyone, slipped out into the cold November night. The security office was in the main admin building. 3rd floor, limited access. Evelyn bypassed the card reader with a technique she'd learned from a Navy technical specialist in 2008. Took her 47 seconds. The office was empty. Night shift was doing rounds. She accessed the security footage archives, pulled up the last 2 weeks of recordings from the main gate perimeter cameras and internal monitoring, and found what she was looking for. 3 security breaches, small ones, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for, all occurring during shift changes, all in areas where she'd been assigned at the time. Someone was testing defenses, learning patterns, mapping vulnerabilities, and they were timing it to her schedule. Evelyn pulled the data, encrypted it, sent it to a personal server she maintained under a false identity. Then she wiped her access logs and left the way she came. Back in the barracks, she pulled out her small notebook, drew a timeline, marked the breaches, noted the patterns, and then she pulled out something else from the very bottom of her footlocker. A photograph, faded, creased, 20 years old. 5 operators in desert camouflage standing in front of a Chinook helicopter. Afghanistan, November 2006. 2 days before Operation Damascus Ridge, Corporal Hayes, Staff Sergeant Lennox, Sergeant Carver, Corporal Finch, and Captain Vaughn Keller. All of them young, all of them confident, all of them about to walk into a nightmare that would kill 3 of them and scatter the rest to the winds. Evelyn studied Keller's face in the photograph. Then she pulled out a red pen, drew a circle around his face, wrote 2 letters next to it. V.K. Vaughn Keller had been there, had seen what happened, had disappeared during the extraction, and now he was here, warning her to leave, threatening her to stay quiet. About what? What had he done 18 years ago that required her silence now? Evelyn stared at the photograph for a long time. Then she tucked it back into her footlocker. But she knew the truth now. Someone was testing Fort Braxton's defenses. Someone had sabotaged her equipment. Someone had tried to drive her away. And that someone was connected to events from 18 years ago that were supposed to stay buried forever. The message had been clear. Iron Wolf, stand by. Someone was coming, someone who knew the truth, and everything was about to change. In the darkness of the barracks, Evelyn Blackwell lay awake and prepared herself for the moment when her past and present would collide. The moment when the name she'd buried would be spoken aloud again. The moment when Iron Wolf would have to stand and be counted, whether she wanted to or not. The morning of November 17th broke cold and merciless over Fort Braxton. 0600 hours, exactly as the encrypted message had specified. Evelyn Blackwell stood in formation with 200 Marines, breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. Her uniform pressed sharp enough to draw blood, boots reflecting the gray dawn sky like black mirrors. She hadn't slept. Not really. 3 hours of shallow rest, punctuated by old nightmares that never quite went away. Desert sand, gunfire, the weight of men she'd carried on her shoulders, the ones who lived, the ones who didn't, 20 years of service, 18 years of silence. And now someone was about to break that silence wide open. The sound came first, distant, growing, rotor blades cutting through cold morning air. Not the usual rhythm of supply helicopters or training birds. This was different, heavier, more deliberate. A UH-60 Black Hawk appeared over the southern tree line, circled once. The formation shifted imperceptibly. 200 sets of eyes tracking movement, while 200 bodies remained frozen at attention. Major Cross conducting morning formation checked his watch, frowned. Nothing on his schedule about VIP arrivals. The Black Hawk descended toward the eastern landing pad, touched down with practiced precision. Rotors still spinning. Door sliding open before the skids fully settled, And then he stepped out. Colonel Marcus Whitfield. Even from across the parade ground, even through morning mist and rotor wash, the man's presence was undeniable. He moved like controlled violence. Every step measured, every gesture purposeful. 32 years of turning boys into Marines and Marines into something harder. He wore dress blues, full ceremonial uniform, not field utilities. That meant official business. That meant whatever was about to happen would be witnessed, recorded, entered into the permanent record. Evelyn's breathing remained steady, her posture unchanged, but something cold and sharp settled in her chest. This was it, the moment she'd spent 18 years avoiding. Whitfield crossed the tarmac. A young captain and two senior enlisted Marines followed 3 paces behind. Security, protocol, witnesses. He approached Major Cross, exchanged salutes with parade ground precision, spoke briefly, too quiet for the formation to hear. Cross's face went through several expressions: confusion, shock, something close to fear. Then the professional mask slammed back down. He turned to the formation. Voice parade ground loud. All personnel, main briefing hall on the double move. 200 Marines broke into quick march. No running. That would be undisciplined. But fast, purposeful. The sound of 400 boots hitting pavement in near-perfect synchronization. Questions whispered despite training. Speculation running wild through the ranks. Who's the colonel? What's happening? Why full dress blues? Evelyn moved with the flow. Not at the front, not at the rear, just another body in the mass, another face in the crowd, but her mind was already 3 steps ahead. Running scenarios, calculating angles, preparing for whatever came next. Because Marcus Whitfield hadn't flown here from Special Operations Command just to say hello. The briefing hall filled in under 4 minutes, every seat occupied. Standing room only along the walls. The energy was electric, nervous, anticipatory. Evelyn took her usual position. Back row, corner seat, wall behind her. Clear sight lines to both exits. Old habits, the kind that kept you alive in places where mistakes were measured in body counts. Sloan Mercer entered, scanned the room with tactical precision, found Evelyn immediately. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Sloan knew something was happening. Knew it involved the quiet sergeant that everyone had dismissed as just another medic transfer. She chose a seat in the middle section, where she could observe without being obvious. Lieutenant Garrett Ashford swaggered in with his usual entourage. 5 cadets who'd decided their futures looked brighter in his shadow. They claimed prime real estate in the second row. Ashford glanced back toward Evelyn. His expression was complicated now. Not the simple contempt from 2 weeks ago. Something more uncertain. Like a bully who just realized his victim might be dangerous. The disassembled rifle incident had shaken him. The obstacle course time had wounded his pride, but he still didn't understand. None of them understood. The room settled into tense silence as Colonel Whitfield entered through the main doors. Attention! 200 people stood as one. The sound was like thunder. Whitfield walked to the podium with measured steps, stood before them, let the silence build until it became almost unbearable, then spoke a single word. Seats. The command was quiet, almost gentle, but absolutely certain of being obeyed. 200 people sat. Whitfield's hands gripped the podium edges. His eyes swept the room, row by row, section by section, face by face. He was memorizing them, cataloging them, the way you did when you were about to tell them something that would change how they saw the world. His gaze reached the back row, found Evelyn, held. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, Marcus Whitfield and Evelyn Blackwell looked at each other across 18 years and 10,000 miles of distance. In his eyes, she saw gratitude, pride, grief for time lost. In hers, he saw the same thing he'd seen in that compound in Helmand Province. That 20-year-old corporal who'd refused to leave him behind, who'd promised nobody dies today and meant it with every fiber of her being. Then the moment passed. Whitfield's attention moved on, completing his survey of the room. He let the silence stretch 5 more seconds. Then he began. My name is Colonel Marcus Whitfield, Deputy Commander Special Operations Command East. I am here on a matter of national security, personal honor, and a debt that can never truly be repaid. The room was absolutely still. 18 years ago this month, I participated in an operation in Afghanistan that has remained classified under presidential authorization. An operation that cost 8 good Marines their lives. An operation that should have cost 12 more. He paused. Let that number sink in. Including mine. Whitfield's voice took on the measured cadence of an after-action report. Precise, detailed, unflinching. November 14th, 2006. Helmand Province, Afghanistan. 0347 local time. 12 Marines from Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marine Regiment, found ourselves trapped in an abandoned compound, surrounded by an estimated 60-plus Taliban fighters with heavy weapons and the high ground. He paused. Two CH-47 Chinook helicopters attempted extraction. Both were shot down before they could touch down. 16 men aboard. 8 survived the crash. 0 survived the next 3 minutes. The weight of those words pressed down on the room like a physical thing. Standard tactical doctrine dictated immediate withdrawal of all remaining forces. Washington, D.C. declared the situation unsalvageable. The operation was written off as a combat loss. Letters of condolence were drafted. Next of kin were prepared for notification. Whitfield's hands tightened on the podium. I was Captain Whitfield then, senior officer on site. I wrote my own letter home that night. Told my wife I loved her. Told my daughter to be strong. Made peace with dying. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Because we were dead. Every tactical analysis said so. Every probability calculation confirmed it. We had maybe 6 hours of ammunition, maybe 8 hours before dehydration became critical, and exactly 0 chance of rescue. He looked up, eyes sweeping the room, and then someone refused to accept those calculations. Whitfield stepped away from the podium, moved to center stage. 20-year-old Corporal Evelyn Blackwell, medical specialist, 2 years in service, 0 combat deployments, 0 special operations experience. He let that sink in. She stepped forward in front of a room full of senior officers and special operations planners, and she volunteered. Whitfield's voice grew stronger. Her exact words were, "Sir, give me 4 people, M40A5 sniper rifles, AN/PVS-14 night vision goggles, 50 pounds of C4 demolition charges. I will extract all 12 Marines in 47 minutes or die trying." Gasps rippled through the audience. The room erupted in protest. Captains called it suicide. Majors called it impossible. A full colonel told this 20-year-old corporal that she didn't understand what she was volunteering for. Whitfield's expression was fierce now, proud. Corporal Blackwell looked him in the eye and said, "Sir, with respect, I understand perfectly. 12 Marines are going to die unless someone tries the impossible. I'm volunteering to trust." The silence in the briefing hall was profound. I was the senior officer. The decision was mine, and I said yes, because when someone has the courage to volunteer for suicide out of pure duty, you don't have the right to refuse them. Whitfield turned, looked directly at the back row. "Iron Wolf, stand by." Time stopped. Every head turned. Every eye found Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell sitting quietly in the back corner where she'd hoped to remain invisible forever. She stood slowly, smoothly, with the controlled precision of someone who'd heard that call sign 10,000 times. Boots together, hands at her sides, eyes forward. Lieutenant Garrett Ashford's face drained of all color. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Sloan Mercer's eyes went wide, pieces clicking into place with almost audible snaps. Major Cross looked like someone had just told him gravity works sideways. Whitfield's voice carried across the silent hall. "Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell, front and center." Evelyn moved down the center aisle, each boot strike precise as a metronome. Not fast, not slow, just the measured pace of someone who'd walked toward impossible odds so many times it had become routine. She reached the front, stopped exactly 6 feet from Whitfield, came to perfect attention. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Whitfield's military bearing cracked slightly. Something human showing through. "Good to see you again, Iron Wolf." Evelyn's voice was steady, giving nothing away. "Colonel," Whitfield turned back to address the room, "you think you know who trains beside you. You think rank and ribbons tell the story. You think you understand what makes a warrior worthy of respect." He shook his head. "You understand nothing." He let that statement hang in the air like a challenge. "What I'm about to show you has been classified for 18 years. The footage was sealed under protocols that required presidential authorization to access. I received that authorization 72 hours ago, for one showing. This morning, right now." The lights dimmed, a projector activated, the screen filled with grainy night vision footage, green and black, timestamp in the corner. 14th of November, 2006, 04:10:47, local, Helmand Province. This is helmet cam footage from Corporal Timothy Hayes, one of the 4 operators who went into hell with her. The screen showed 5 figures moving through desert terrain, tactical spacing, weapons ready, moving like ghosts through impossible terrain. Corporal Hayes on point, Staff Sergeant David Lennox providing overwatch, Sergeant Robert Carver with demolitions, Corporal James Finch as combat medic. A smaller figure moved through the frame, efficient, controlled, every movement purposeful. And Corporal Evelyn Blackwell, call sign Iron Wolf, mission commander. The audience watched in absolute silence. Whitfield's narration continued. Thermal imaging showed hostile positions. 14 fighters north perimeter, 18 south, 25 in roaming patrols. Any conventional approach would have walked directly into overlapping fields of fire. A kill zone. On screen, the team moved through terrain that looked suicidal, using micro-terrain features. Dead ground, shadows. Corporal Blackwell didn't choose a conventional approach. She analyzed the compound structure, identified a drainage tunnel 18 inches in diameter running under the north wall. Too small for adult males, but not too small for her. The footage showed Evelyn approaching the tunnel entrance, removing her plate carrier, her rifle. She went in alone, no body armor, no primary weapon, just a sidearm and the absolute certainty that 12 Marines were counting on her. The screen went black for 8 seconds, then flickered to life from a different angle. Interior compound. Bodies slumped against walls. Blood. Chaos. The room gasped. She found us in the central courtyard. 12 Marines, 6 wounded, 3 critical. I was one of the critical cases. Whitfield's voice was rough now, heavy with memory. Shrapnel wound to the femoral artery. Massive blood loss. I had maybe 15 minutes of consciousness left. Maybe 20 before I bled out completely. The footage showed a young Evelyn Blackwell moving between wounded Marines, assessing, prioritizing, making decisions no 20-year-old should ever have to make. I gave her a direct order. I told her to take the younger Marines first, the ones with wives, with children, with futures. Whitfield paused. Her response is not on the audio recording, but I remember every word. She said, "With respect, sir, shut the hell up and maintain pressure on your wound. Nobody dies today, nobody. That's not a suggestion, that's an order." Surprised laughter broke the tension, but it died quickly. Then she made a choice that defines everything you need to know about leadership under pressure. The footage showed Evelyn working on 3 Marines who were clearly dying. Field surgery, tourniquets, emergency medicine performed with bullets hitting walls around her. 3 Marines, all critical, all minutes from death. She could save them, or she could save me. Her commanding officer, the senior man, the one whose rank demanded priority. Whitfield's voice cracked. She saved them first. The room was absolutely silent. Performed combat medicine that her instructors said was impossible under field conditions. Stabilized wounds that should have been fatal. Then dragged all 3 to the extraction point where Corporal Hayes and Staff Sergeant Lennox provided covering fire. The footage showed chaos, muzzle flashes, tracers, confusion. And then, Whitfield had to stop, compose himself. Then she came back for me. The screen showed Evelyn appearing through smoke and darkness, moving toward Whitfield's position, alone. I was fading. I'd made my peace, written my mental goodbye letters. And then this 20-year-old corporal materialized out of the smoke and said 5 words I will never forget as long as I live. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Nobody dies today, sir. Nobody." The footage showed Evelyn hauling Whitfield across open ground. She weighed maybe 130. He weighed 220 with gear, but she moved him like he weighed nothing. She got me to the extraction point, handed me off to Corporal Finch, and then the screen showed Evelyn picking up an M40A5 sniper rifle, taking position behind a collapsed wall. Then she provided covering fire for the entire extraction. The footage showed precision, shot after shot, controlled, methodical, deadly. Taliban fighters realized we were escaping. More than 40 converged on our position from 3 directions. She held them off, alone, for 6 minutes and 17 seconds. On-screen explosions rocked the compound. Sergeant Carver had planted C4 charges at a false position on her orders. Classic misdirection. She detonated them during the extraction to create chaos, drew enemy attention away from the helicopter. The footage showed the UH-60 lifting off. Evelyn was the last aboard, still firing, still protecting her Marines. The screen went black. The lights in the briefing hall came back up slowly. No one moved, no one spoke, no one even seemed to breathe. Whitfield turned to face the room. His eyes were wet, but his voice was rock steady. Total operational time from insertion to extraction, 47 minutes. Exactly as she promised. He paused. Total friendly casualties, 0. All 12 Marines came home alive. Another pause. Confirmed enemy killed in action, 11. Probable enemy KYA-17. All verified through subsequent intelligence analysis. Whitfield's voice grew harder. Corporal Evelyn Blackwell took 2 gunshot wounds during that operation. One grazed her left shoulder. One entered her right thigh and lodged against the femur. She did not report either injury until after complete mission debriefing, until after she had personally verified that all 12 Marines were receiving appropriate medical care, until after she had ensured that every piece of equipment was accounted for and every after-action procedure was complete. He looked at Evelyn, standing beside him at attention. She was 20 years old. She had been in the Marine Corps for exactly 2 years and 16 days, and she commanded an operation that special operations planners called impossible, that senior officers called suicide, that tactical analysts said had 0 probability of success. Whitfield's voice rose. She was awarded the Medal of Honor in a closed ceremony that exists nowhere in public records. The citation is classified. The operation is classified. Her name has been classified for 18 years. He turned to face the room fully. But I am declassifying it right now, because this hall is full of future leaders who need to understand what real leadership actually looks like. His eyes swept every face. It doesn't look like rank insignia. It doesn't look like ribbons on a chest. It doesn't look like swagger or arrogance or the loudest voice in the room. He gestured to Evelyn. It looks like a 20-year-old corporal volunteering for suicide because 12 people needed her. It looks like impossible decisions made under impossible pressure. It looks like taking bullets and not complaining. It looks like bringing everyone home alive when everyone said it couldn't be done. Whitfield stepped back, came to rigid attention. You have been training beside a legend. You have been dismissing as just a medic, one of the most highly decorated special operators in modern Marine Corps history. You have been mocking someone who has more combat experience and more confirmed saves than everyone in this room combined. His voice hardened to steel. Iron Wolf is not just a call sign. It is a promise. It is a standard. It is what happens when duty and courage meet impossible odds and refuse to back down. Colonel Marcus Whitfield saluted Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell, and 200 Marines erupted. Everyone standing, everyone saluting. The sound of 400 boots hitting floors simultaneously was like cannon fire. Evelyn stood at the front of the hall, surrounded by salutes, surrounded by respect she had never wanted, never asked for, never sought. Her face remained professionally neutral, but Sloan Mercer, watching closely, saw what others missed. Evelyn's left hand, the one they couldn't see, trembling, not from fear, from 18 years of emotion held tightly under control, suddenly threatening to break free. The salutes held. 5 seconds, 10, 15, 20. Finally, Whitfield lowered his hand. The room followed. He turned to Evelyn, spoke quietly, just for her. They understand now. Evelyn's voice was barely audible. This wasn't necessary, Marcus. Yes, it was, because this isn't about recognition, it's about protection. Her eyes narrowed slightly. From what? Whitfield's expression darkened. From someone who knows you're here. Someone who has 18 years of reasons to keep you quiet. Cold reality crashed down. Keller, Major Vaughn Keller, assigned into Fort Braxton 3 weeks ago under Security Protocols Authority. He warned me to leave, because he knows what you saw, what you can testify to, what you represent. Evelyn kept her voice low, aware of 200 people watching. What did he do? Whitfield pulled a tablet from his aide, showed her the screen. Classified intelligence reports, encrypted communications, financial transaction records. He sold tactical intelligence to Taliban forces, not after Damascus Ridge, before. He gave them our insertion coordinates, our strength estimates, our timeline. He's the reason those 12 Marines were trapped. He's the reason 8 men died in those helicopters before we could even attempt rescue. The words hit like bullets. You have proof. We have communications. We have financial records showing payments from known Taliban financial networks to accounts he controlled. What we don't have is eyewitness testimony from someone who was there, someone who can verify his pre-mission behavior, someone who noticed the inconsistencies. Whitfield met her eyes. You're the only other operator besides me who was present at the full mission briefing, who saw his reactions, who can place him at specific times and locations. Your testimony is the difference between circumstantial evidence and conviction for treason. He disappeared during extraction. He ran because he knew if we came back alive, questions would be asked. So he vanished during the chaos, declared killed in action when his body wasn't recovered, started over under a new identity. Until now. Until now, someone with serious resources pulled strings, got him reassigned here under his real name, gave him access to security systems and base protocols. Evelyn's tactical mind was already moving. He's been testing defenses, learning patterns. He knows I'm here. He's preparing for elimination. We believe he has less than 48 hours before our investigation forces his hand. Then we don't wait for him to move. We force the engagement on our terms. Whitfield allowed himself a small smile. There's the Iron Wolf, I remember. What do you need? Full security access. Complete personnel files, and I need Keller to think he's winning. Dangerous. Tactical. 48 hours. Then we better move fast. They walked out of the briefing hall together, colonel and sergeant, commander and warrior. But somewhere in the depths of Fort Braxton, in a darkened security office, Major Von Keller watched the briefing through monitors he'd compromised weeks ago. Watched Whitfield's arrival. Watched the revelation. Watched his carefully constructed cover disintegrate and made his decision. If it was ending, he would end it on his terms. At precisely 1700 hours that afternoon, alarms screamed across Fort Braxton. Breach detected. West perimeter. Multiple hostiles. Armed incursion. This is not a drill. And Iron Wolf's final mission began. Evelyn was moving before the second alarm cycle completed. She'd been in her quarters, reviewing security footage on her tablet, mapping Keller's patterns, waiting for exactly this moment, because she'd known it was coming. Cornered animals always attacked. Her go bag was already packed, had been for 3 days. M4A1 carbine, 4 magazines, M9 sidearm, 2 spare mags, AN/PVS-14 night vision monocular, tactical radio with encrypted frequency. She was combat ready in 28 seconds. 18 years of muscle memory didn't fade. It compressed, refined, became instinct sharper than conscious thought. Radio headset on. She keyed the mic. Whitfield, this is Iron Wolf. I'm mobile. Situation report. Static crackled. Then Whitfield's voice. Clipped. Controlled. The sound of a man who'd been under fire before and knew how to stay calm. 6 hostiles, confirmed. Military-grade equipment. Coordinated breach through West Fence section. Moving toward admin building in tactical formation. Keller is leading them. Rules of engagement. Capture for prosecution if possible. Neutralize if necessary. Deadly force is authorized. Civilian evacuation status. In progress. Non-essential personnel moving to safe zone. ETA complete evacuation 12 minutes. Not fast enough. I'm moving to intercept. Keep your team at north entrance. I'll push from south. Hammer and anvil. Negative Iron Wolf. Wait for backup. 6 against 1 is. 6 against 1 are odds I've faced before, Colonel, and I'm not alone. She cut the channel, moved toward the door, and found Corporal Sloan Mercer standing outside, fully armed, plate carrier secured, weapon at ready low. Their eyes met. Sergeant Blackwell, I'm coming with you. Evelyn assessed her in 2 seconds. Gear properly worn, stance balanced, eyes alert but not panicked, breathing controlled. You're supposed to evacuate with non-essential personnel. Colonel Whitfield designated me essential. Your call, whether I stay. Smart. Whitfield had listened. Can you follow orders without hesitation? Yes, Sergeant. Can you fire on American citizens if they're threatening Marines? Sloan didn't hesitate. Yes, Sergeant. Then stay 3 paces behind me. Do exactly what I say when I say it. You hesitate, people die. You improvise, people die. You follow my lead, we all go home. Clear. Crystal clear, Sergeant. Then move. They ran through Fort Braxton at combat pace, fast enough to close distance, controlled enough to maintain tactical awareness. The compound was organized chaos. Cadets moving to designated safe zones. Instructors establishing security perimeters. The evacuation plan they'd rehearsed that afternoon activating with acceptable efficiency. Most people were getting clear. But not everyone. Evelyn's radio crackled. All stations be advised. Hostiles have split into 2 elements. 4 moving toward admin building, 2 breaking toward barracks section. Evelyn processed instantly, made the call. Whitfield, I'm engaging the 2-man element. They're going after cadets who haven't evacuated yet. Copy. My team has the 4-man element contained. Be advised they're heavily armed. So am I. She changed direction. Sloan matched her stride for stride. They rounded the corner of the mess hall and found the first casualty. Military police. Sergeant, maybe 25 years old, gunshot wound to the upper chest. He was on his back, eyes open, still breathing, but barely. Sloan froze for half a second. Evelyn knelt, checked the wound. Entry high right chest, no exit. Probably hit the lung. She applied pressure, keyed her radio. Casualty at mess hall north corner, GSW to chest. Need immediate medevac. Copy, medical en route, 2 minutes. 2 minutes this Marine probably didn't have. Evelyn looked at Sloan. You know combat first aid? Yes, Sergeant. Then you stay here. Keep pressure on this wound. If he stops breathing, you start rescue breathing. Medical is 2 minutes out. You keep him alive for 2 minutes. Understood. Sloan's face was pale but determined. Understood. Good, because his wife is 7 months pregnant and their daughter is 3 years old. He goes home to them. That's not a hope. That's an order. Evelyn stood, moved toward the sound of gunfire without looking back. She found them at the East Barracks entrance. 2 hostiles, black tactical gear. No unit insignia. Professional contractors. The kind who charged $20,000 a week and didn't ask questions about legality. They were attempting to breach the barracks door. Inside, she could hear voices. Scared, young, cadets who hadn't made it to evacuation. The hostiles had their backs to her position. Evelyn moved into position. 40 yards, clear line of sight, no civilians in the backdrop. She could take them both from here. 2 shots, 2 seconds. But she needed at least one alive for interrogation. She keyed her freedom, whisper quiet. Whitfield, I have 2 hostiles at East Barracks, engaging now. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Stepped out of cover, weapon up, combat stance. Federal officer, drop your weapons hands where I can see them. Both hostiles spun. Training took over, weapons coming up. But Evelyn was faster. She'd spent 18 years being faster. First hostile took a 3-round burst center mass. He went down hard. Second hostile got his weapon halfway up before Evelyn adjusted aim. Shot his right shoulder. Specific, precise. Disabling but not fatal. He screamed, dropped his weapon, collapsed. Evelyn was on him in 3 seconds. Kicked his weapon clear. Zip-tied his hands behind his back despite his screaming. Where's Keller? The hostile just groaned. Pain management training keeping him silent. Evelyn applied pressure to his shoulder wound. He screamed louder. I asked you a question. Where is Major Vaughn Keller? Admin building server room. He's on. The hostile's voice cut off as he passed out from pain. Evelyn keyed her radio. 1 hostile down, 1 detained. Keller is in admin building server room. Whitfield's voice came back strained. Copy. We're engaged heavy at north entrance. Can't break off without exposing our position. I'm moving to you. 60 seconds. She ran. The admin building was 300 yards. She covered it in 45 seconds. The north entrance was chaos. Whitfield's 4-man security team pinned down behind concrete barriers. The 4 remaining hostiles dug in at the building entrance. Professional crossfire. Good tactical discipline. Stalemate. Evelyn assessed the situation in 3 seconds, then keyed her radio on Whitfield's frequency. Colonel, when I start shooting, you push hard. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Just push. What are you? Evelyn was already moving. She circled wide, used the eastern approach, came at the hostile position from an angle they weren't watching. 40 yards, 30, 20, she opened fire. Controlled bursts, professional, precise. 2 hostiles went down before they even knew she was there. The remaining 2 spun to engage this new threat, and Whitfield's team came through the north entrance like a hammer. It was over in 8 seconds. 4 hostiles down, Whitfield's team intact. Evelyn moved to the building entrance. Whitfield joined her. Server room. 3rd floor. He locked himself in 10 minutes ago. Explosives. Unknown. Possible. Evelyn thought fast. Evacuate this building. Everyone out. Now. What are you doing? Going in after him. Alone? Are you insane? Evelyn met his eyes. I'm the only one he won't immediately kill. He needs to talk to me, needs to justify himself. That gives me an opening. That's not a plan. That's suicide. That's tactics. Trust me, Marcus. I've done impossible before. Whitfield stared at her, then nodded once. 5 minutes, then I'm coming in whether you're done or not. Fair. Evelyn moved into the building, 3rd floor, server room, reinforced door, electronic lock showing red, SIRD. She stood outside, took a breath, then knocked. Vaughn, it's Evelyn. Open the door. Silence, then his voice. Distorted through the door, but recognizable. So they told you about Damascus, about everything. They told me you're a traitor, that you sold out 12 Marines, that you caused the deaths of 8 good men. Is that what Whitfield said? That's what the evidence says. Silence again, longer this time. Then the lock clicked. Green light. The door opened, 6 inches. Evelyn pushed through. Weapon ready but not aimed. The server room was small, 15 by 20, racks of computers, blinking lights, the digital heart of Fort Braxton's security systems. And in the center, Major Vaughn Keller. He looked like he'd aged 20 years in the last 20 days. Eyes sunken, face gaunt, the weight of 18 years of running finally crushing him. He held a pistol, not aimed at her, just held, loose, like he couldn't decide what to do with it. You should have left when I told you to. You should have stayed and faced justice 18 years ago. Keller laughed, bitter, hollow. Justice. You really believe that exists? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point? He looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing her for the first time. You were so young at Damascus, 20 years old, and you volunteered. You actually volunteered. It was my duty. Duty, he spat the word. You know what my duty got me, my brother in a grave, my career in ashes, 18 years running from shadows. Your brother. Civilian contractor, wrong place, wrong time. Taliban grabbed him, held him for 3 months, and then they made me an offer. Evelyn kept her weapon ready, kept her distance. Tell me, intelligence for his life, coordinates, timing, troop strength, everything they needed to set up that ambush. And you gave it to them. What would you have done? He was my brother, my only family. I would have reported it to command. Let professionals handle the negotiation. Keller's laugh was broken. There was no negotiation. They killed him anyway. 2 days after I gave them everything, killed him and dumped his body where I'd find it. He looked down at the pistol in his hand. So I gave them 12 Marines for nothing. Got 8 men killed for nothing. Destroyed my career for nothing. And then you ran. What else could I do? If I stayed, I'd face court-martial, execution for treason. So I vanished during the extraction, let them think I died, started over, and lived with it for 18 years. Lived? His voice rose. You call this living? Every day wondering if today's the day someone figures it out. Every night dreaming about those 8 men in the helicopters, about the 12 in that compound. His hand tightened on the pistol. You saved them all, every single one. Did the impossible, became a legend. He looked at her with something like hate. And I became a ghost. You became a traitor. There's a difference. I did what I had to do. No, Evelyn's voice was hard. You did what was easy, what felt justified in the moment. But you had choices. You always had choices. Easy, Keller's face twisted. You think any of this was easy? Easier than facing the consequences, easier than telling the truth, easier than accepting responsibility. The pistol in his hand wavered, rising slightly. Evelyn's finger moved to her trigger, ready. But then the door behind her crashed open. Lieutenant Garrett Ashford burst through, unarmed, hands out. Major Keller, don't. Keller's pistol snapped toward Ashford. Evelyn moved without thinking, stepped between them, weapon up, aimed at Keller's center mass. Don't do it, Vaughn. This can still end without more death. Ashford was breathing hard, speaking fast. Major, I spent the last 3 weeks being exactly like you, making the easy choices, blaming others, running from responsibility. He stepped closer despite Evelyn's opposition. But Sergeant Blackwell showed me something. Showed all of us something. That courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about facing what scares you anyway. Keller's hand was shaking now. You don't understand, I understand you're scared. I understand you've been running. But you can stop running now. You can face it. Make it right. There's no making this right. Maybe not, but there's facing it with honor instead of dying like a coward. The words hit Keller like a slap. His pistol lowered slightly. I'm already dead. The moment Whitfield brought that evidence, I was dead. Evelyn's voice was quiet, certain. Then die clean. Die having told the truth. Die having faced what you did. Why, what difference does it make? Because those 8 men in the helicopters deserve to know why they died. Those 12 in the compound deserve to know who betrayed them. And you deserve to stop running. Keller stared at her, then at Ashford, then at the pistol in his hand. For 5 seconds, nobody breathed. Then slowly, so slowly, Keller's hand opened. The pistol clattered to the floor. He collapsed to his knees. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." Evelyn lowered her weapon, keyed her radio. "Whitfield, suspect in custody. No shots fired. We're coming out." She pulled Keller to his feet, secured his hands, looked at Ashford. "That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. Thank you." Ashford's face was pale but proud. "I learned from the best sergeant." They walked out together. 3 months later, Fort Braxton, Advanced Tactical Leadership Classroom. 40 cadets, notebooks open, attention focused forward. At the front, Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell stood beside a tactical diagram. Beside her, Corporal Sloan Mercer wore the new patch on her shoulder. Wolfpack Training Division. In the third row, Lieutenant Garrett Ashford took notes. No longer arrogant, no longer mocking, changed fundamentally by what he'd witnessed. Evelyn addressed the class. "Leadership is not about rank. It's not about credentials. It's not about who sounds most confident in the briefing room." She paused. "Leadership is about making the right call when everything is wrong. When the easy choice is obvious and the right choice is impossible." She gestured to the diagram. The Blackwell Doctrine. 3 principles. First mission, success is measured in lives saved, not enemies killed. Second, leaders eat last, fight first, and accept responsibility always. Third, nobody gets left behind, ever. Regardless of rank, regardless of tastet. One cadet raised her hand. "Sergeant Blackwell, what if saving everyone is impossible?" Evelyn's expression softened slightly. "Then you redefine impossible. You find the option nobody else saw. You take the risk nobody else would, and you refuse to accept failure as inevitable." Another question. "What happened to Major Keller?" The room went quiet. "Major Keller is currently serving a life sentence at the United States Disciplinary Barracks. He pled guilty to treason, conspiracy, and violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He cooperated fully with investigators, provided evidence that led to the arrest of 3 foreign intelligence operatives and 2 defense contractors." She paused. "He chose to face what he'd done, to stop running. That doesn't erase his crimes. But it shows that even someone who made terrible choices can still choose honor at the end." Class ended, cadets filed out, discussion continuing. Sloan approached Evelyn. "The memorial ceremony is tomorrow. You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be. All 12 will be there." "I know." The next day, November 22nd, exactly 18 years, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Damascus Ridge Memorial. A simple wall, black granite, not names of the dead, names of the living. 12 Marines who came home because one 20-year-old corporal refused to accept impossible. 200 people gathered. Veterans, families, active duty Marines, and at the center, the 12 survivors. Captain Marcus Whitfield, now Colonel, retired. Lieutenant James Rodriguez, now Major. Recruiting Command, Sergeant Dale Cooper, now Gunnery Sergeant. Drill Instructor, each one older, grayer, but alive, because of her. Evelyn stood before the memorial, hand resting on the cold stone. Behind her she heard footsteps. Marcus Whitfield, civilian clothes now, but still carrying himself like a Marine. "You know what the beautiful part is?" Evelyn didn't turn. "What's that? 22 children, 18 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, all born because you brought their fathers and grandfathers home." Her eyes stung. 42 reasons it mattered. 42 reasons you're a hero. "I'm not a hero, Marcus. I was just a Marine doing her duty." "That's exactly what makes you one." The ceremony began. Speeches, recognition, honors. When they called Evelyn forward to receive her Medal of Honor publicly for the first time, 200 people stood. Applause, tears, gratitude. But Evelyn's eyes found the wall. The 12 names. That's who this was for. Not glory, not recognition. For the promise she'd made, the promise she'd kept. Nobody dies today. After the ceremony, Evelyn stood alone at the memorial. Sloan approached quietly. "Sergeant, just saying goodbye." "To who?" "To Iron Wolf. That part of my life is closed now." She turned from the memorial. "Come on. We have cadets to train Monday, and the next generation of Marines isn't going to teach themselves." They walked away together, teacher and student, past and future. Behind them, the memorial caught the late afternoon sun. The final line engraved at the bottom glowed like fire. Iron Wolf, call sign retired, legacy eternal. And in the names above it, the real legacy. 12 lives saved, 42 lives created, thousands of Marines trained, millions inspired, all because one 20-year-old corporal heard impossible and answered with 2 words: watch me. The story of Iron Wolf was finished, but the legend had just begun. In every classroom where honor was taught, in every mission where courage was required, in every impossible situation where someone refused to give up, Iron Wolf would be there, not as a person, as a promise. That duty matters. That honor endures. That impossible is just a word used by people who quit too early. And somewhere in Fort Braxton, in a classroom full of young Marines, Sergeant Evelyn Blackwell taught the next generation what she'd learned in blood and sand: that nobody gets left behind, ever. Mission complete. All personnel accounted for. Iron Wolf signing off.